We will get started, everyone. Hi all. So this is a webinar setting. Your videos and microphones are off. You can hear and see us, but we cannot hear and see you. But good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our program, Meet the Mayoral Candidates. This is the second and final night of a two-part program to introduce the mayoral candidates vying for this critical role in the city of Albany and capital of New York. My name is Grace Giancola. I am the Assistant Director of Residence Life for the Troy campus, and I'm also the chair of the Sage Votes Committee. Sage Votes is a comprehensive, nonpartisan initiative whose mission is to promote student voter registration, voter participation, and voter awareness through on-campus and virtual activities. Our committee consists of students, faculty, and staff. We are so excited to jump into our program tonight, and now I'm happy to turn it over to your classmate and project co-lead, Brandon Indovina.
All right, so we're just going to do a little transition here to our next candidate to join us, who is Alicia Purdy. Alicia is a veteran multimedia journalist with a bachelor's in broadcasting and a master's in journalism. Her career focus has been on politics, government and business, and religion as well. She currently works as a writer and producer of a broadcast news magazine covering issues around the world that affect the people in the capital region. She is a runner and trains in boxing. She is also a certified fitness trainer. She loves coffee, grammar jokes, and reading. She hates hot weather and rudeness. Alicia was born and raised in the capital region, and she and her husband have 5 children and 1 cat named Chester. Please welcome Alicia. Are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, perfect.
Make sure I'm on mute. Is that okay? Everybody got me?
Yeah, perfect.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me tonight. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. I'm really excited that the night is here.
Perfect. If you want to introduce yourself a little bit more, take the time right now and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Okay. Yes. So you read my bio. Can everybody hear me okay? I got my headphones in. All right. So you read my bio, which is very nice of you. Yes. So I'm a journalist. That's what I do. I've got my master's degree in journalism, my bachelor's in broadcasting, and I am so my focus has been on politics and government, not just specifically the political realm, but specifically government structure. I used to cover the House and the Senate at the federal level. And in New York State, about 15 years ago, I was covering the New York State Assembly. And so I was raised in a very politically engaged family. I was the little girl at the gazebo in the town square, singing all the patriotic songs on the 4th of July, dressed in a red, white, and blue bow tie that my mom made me wear and forced me to learn all the songs from all the branches of military. So I grew up in that kind of a family. My brother served in the military for a long time. So, so learning about politics was something I was already interested in. And so I kind of leaned my journalism career in that direction. And people have said to me, why mayor? Why now? All these different things. Well, why not now? First of all, it's a great opportunity to run for mayor. This is really a good climate, actually, when there's upheaval, people are crying out for change. And I, like many other people, there are so many people of skill and talent waiting in the wings. And so really, I believe there are people that are crying out for change that have the ability to step up. I mean, just have it for whatever reason. Life happens. And so I decided that this would be the time. So kind of all that experience I've had observing and watching from the sidelines and reporting on it and researching it and digging, I am ready to go. So that's a little bit about my professional background. I am the mother of 5 kids. I recently became a certified fitness trainer, and I love to train in boxing. And I will give you a tip. Most men are very hesitant to throw a punch at a woman in the face. And you can exploit that when you're boxing, and then you can hit first. And then they're like, oh, wait, we're boxing. This isn't a domestic violence situation. And so it's very funny that they are very hesitant. And you keep even boxing when they're still like, there's like a weird wall here. I feel like I shouldn't be doing this. And I'm like, no, it's okay. I won't get mad, I promise. So anyway, yeah, so that's a little bit about me. My family and I are from this area. And I grew up actually in Greene County and graduated from high school in a little pocket town called Greenville, where I sang at the town square. And when I was right after I graduated grad school, I came back to Albany and started teaching at St. Rose. I taught mass media and communications, and that's when I worked in the assembly and did all that sort of thing. So yeah, there's a little bit about me. There's my nutshell.
Thank you very much for everything. So what we've done today, we have a few questions to ask you, and we can jump right into it whenever you're ready.
Sure.
Alrighty. So the first one we have is, On your campaign page, you state drugs, addiction, mental health, domestic violence, child abuse, and poverty all play a negative role in the city of Albany. How do you see young voters affected by these issues, and how do you as mayor begin to address these issues?
So yeah, those issues are negative to all of humanity. They're negative to the human condition. More, I mean, not just the city of Albany. Obviously, I'm running for mayor, and so it was important that I address that there. But those are human condition issues that will always be in our world. And I think that it's the responsibility of people when someone is struggling, that people who maybe have overcome something like that or have a heart or a compassion to help people with resources and ideas and whatever they can give. I do feel that civic burden of responsibility in the theater of humanity to step up and to do something and not do nothing, and certainly not to do nothing and then complain about it all day. So in terms of the youth, now I am not a youth, so I don't want to speak for the youth, but I do have children that are in their 20s. And so I'll express to you from my personal experience. I hate when people presume that they think they know what you're going through, and then they craft policy under the presumption that they know anything about you. And so it's important to me I love the phrase, seek first to understand. That's absolutely like a guiding principle I live my life by. It's one of the 7 habits of highly effective people. Anyway, so what I've seen in young people, and I apologize if it doesn't encompass anybody, this is just my observation. It is so overwhelming that I think people end up doing nothing, and there's an apathy, and there's a sense of nothing I do is going to change. I'm a one person. I could go out and feed the homeless all day, but there will always be more homeless people, for example. What can one person do? And we're all very connected to our devices and our screens. And it's a quasi sense of community, because it doesn't put a burden of responsibility as a human being, you don't feel that burden, I think, of civic duty to the level to which maybe somebody like our grandparents might have felt, to step up and do something about it. So what I see in young people is what does it matter? Plus, we're all very busy on our screens. And I feel like we have to really mentally pull ourselves away and force ourselves to look around at the world. I'm going to sound like a mom. Just get off our screens and look around at the world around us. Because what happens is when we are distracted, life is still happening. People are still being born, and people are still dying, and people are still contracting diseases, and people are still homeless and sleeping on a street or struggling with poverty. And then we have fewer and fewer people attacking that problem. So I guess my concern, if anything, is young people feel like there are very few that feel like they're going to amount to anything or be able to ever really affect it. It's a huge problem. It's an overwhelming problem. And so I love that you're doing something civilly engaged for that reason, because I'm just one of those people who naturally I'm a firstborn, I'm in type A. I have that natural sense of responsibility that sits on my shoulders. I was just born that way. And I love seeing that people feel like they can affect, because I believe in the power of one. I truly do. And so to ignite that in somebody and say, no, you're wrong. You could affect change by affecting one life, because you don't know who that person affects, and you just don't know. And so anyway, all that to say, how would I attack it in the city of Albany? Sorry, bring it back full circle. So in terms of the city of Albany, again, these are problems that will always be part of the human condition. I actually myself have lived, it's a long story, I have been homeless. My family and I, with my kids, we were removed out of our house for a whole situation. And I wasn't sleeping on the street, but we didn't have a home, and we had to live on the good graces of other people until we could get back on our feet. We were on food stamps. We were on social services. That was an extremely difficult time in my life. But now that I look back, I'm almost grateful. First of all, I learned the lesson never to get to that point again. That was my own fault. Second of all, I learned some fiscal responsibility, but also it grew compassion in me for people who live that all the time, and I had a master's degree to fall back on. I was able to find a good job. My family and I were able to climb out of the hole because I had an education that I could employ to help myself move forward. And so in the city of Albany, there are a lot of programs. There are actually, and a lot of people don't know about them. That's a whole different ball of wax, but there actually are programs, whether or not they are underfunded, overfunded, misapplied, So that's a starting point right there, is an examination of those things, because I have done the digging as my journalist skills have come in. Someone asked me on my campaign speech, why aren't there more programs for Black children? And that struck me hard. And I thought, I'm not a Black mother with a Black child. I don't know why, but I'm going to go find out. And so I did some digging, and I don't know what kind of program she wanted. She didn't specify. But one of the things the city of Albany has not done well is we obviously have a homeless problem. And I don't mean problem like if that's the blight. I'm just saying it's the plight. We have a homeless plight, and we have blighted buildings that attract, crime and these different things. There's been a really long time that nothing's been done. And I talk to a lot of people. I'm constantly interviewing people. That's the thing I do. I'm always seeking first to understand. And people feel like in the city of Albany that nobody cares because nobody has to care. There isn't any motivation for people to care because there's been, a certain party power for a long time. And so anyway, as mayor, the first thing I want to do is I want to actually take a look at the finances. That's the first thing I want to look at. Where is the money going, and could it be put to better use? Because I have talked to homeless people. I've talked to single parents. I've talked to a lot of people who have said, hey, have you ever slept at the city mission? Hey, have you ever done, I know somebody right now, I'm going with them tomorrow. They are a success story for the Albany County Sheriff's SHIPS program, because they were living in Tent City. I don't know if you know about Tent City, but it's down there, down by the river. And I said, why didn't you go to the city mission? I'd love to know now that's a privately funded program. Why didn't you go to the city mission? And they gave me their reasons, what had happened to them there, what their experience was. And they said, I would never go to the city mission. Never. I'd rather sleep on the streets. Those are problems. And so what this person was saying to me was, there's a lot of activity of life that's being legislated, and there's a lot of money being thrown around. And he said, but I still slept on the street for years because I couldn't get into the program. I didn't qualify. Or I didn't have access to the internet. I didn't have a smartphone. There were so many reasons why. And so it's not a matter of throwing more money at the situation. Really what it is, and I branded myself as the people's mayor. That's my platform, because I want people to understand that I believe that people are the solution, not money and programs. They're part of the solution, but really people are, because if you don't understand truly what people are going through, then you're going to misapply the solution. And I think that that's what's happened. And I want to find a solution that works for the real people and what they're going through.
Thank you so much for that answer. Touching back on how you stated you were a journalist, you're able to dig deep into things. How do you think your journalism background will positively affect your campaign and the skills you've learned in your past, and you'll be able to bring those into being the next governor or mayor?
Governor, all right, I'll take it. Don't tell anybody, it's my secret. Catch me in 10 years. So I'll tell you, when you're a journalist, first of all, I have to say this to everybody when they hear I'm a journalist. There's no such thing as unbiased media. I'm just going to put it out there. We're all trained in journalism school how to craft a story to fit our agenda. No matter what your agenda is, it's just you're a human being. You cannot help but apply who you are in some regard to whatever you're saying. So just putting that out there. It's a little industry secret. Second of all, so one thing that journalists, I'm like a true journalist. There are news reporters. There are different levels of journalism. And so I'm a research type of journalist. So the articles that I write are not a quick little 300 words in the Times Union. I'm more like a magazine article where you would do the deep research. And so that is really a passion of mine, is to investigate and to research, which is why I said kind of as mayor, the digging I intend to do, I think will be uncomfortable, because there are several pieces as I'm getting to know. I have a lot of secret agents that don't want their names known, and journalists will go to jail for that. I would rather go to jail than give up a source, but I have some sources that have shared with me pieces of the puzzle, even just regards to money, anything, police, whatever that is. And there are some areas in which I have not been able to piece that puzzle together. And that really bothers me, because as a journalist, what it tells me is that somebody somewhere knows something, and they're not saying it. And there are a lot, people say, I'll give you an example. Where are my tax dollars going? Potholes, trash, crime, blight building, whatever. People say, I pay, my area, I pay almost $10,000 a year in taxes. That's a lot of money. That's half my mortgage. More than half my mortgage is in taxes. And my dad has had to pave my road himself. He's hired people to pave the road because the city won't do anything about it. That's just such a tiny little petty example, but it matters to people. So their everyday livability, I'm telling you, before somebody says a shooting, they're going to say, why aren't my leaves picked up on the day the city says they're going to get picked up? It sounds petty, but it isn't, because people's everyday livability also matters. So where is that money coming from? Lincoln Park just had all their trees, their mature trees taken down, and people didn't know, people didn't hear, people were flipped out. They were like, where'd all our mature trees go? You're going to put up basketball courts. You didn't even ask the people who live here. And so information access is another huge problem. So as a journalist, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Channel Albany, but Albany does have a public access channel that the mayor defunded about 2 years ago. And the city of Albany pays for it in their taxes on their Spectrum cable bill. But instead of allocating that, and I'm a firm believer as a journalist in the power of the press, even if I were mayor, to hold myself accountable with checks and balances. I hope there's people out there saying, you said this on this date and at this time, or whatever, you said this in your State of the City address. And now here we are a year later, and what have you done? I would like to be held accountable, because I believe that forces people in political office to do their jobs. So one of my acts as mayor will be, I'm coming for Channel Albany. I want to restore public access, because by broadcasting from a YouTube channel or a Facebook channel, you think you're giving people access, but really you're presenting a picture that you want them to see, rather than them showing up with their own cameras and standing there in front of you and filming what they feel the people would want to see. So I don't want to be a PR mayor. I would like to be the people's press. That's really important to me. I don't know if you guys saw that I was at the Black Lives Matter march a couple of days ago with my camera on. A little bit of that was my journalist in me. This is what we do. But I wanted people to see themselves what was going on, rather than watching 2 minutes on a news clip. I wanted people to see reality, and I wanted to see it for myself as well. So those journalistic skills and that desire for me to truly understand and experience someone else's condition and be in the middle and smell the smells and hear the sounds, that's a big deal for me. And I think that's what makes an effective mayor, frankly.
Just adding on top of that, the next question leads into is, I did see you recently at the local Black Lives Matter process in Albany. I was just wondering if you want to expand on your experience there and what you learned from like going around talking to people and stuff.
Yes. Okay. So I keep my ear to the ground with social media as much as I can. And I had heard that there was an event. Someone tagged me at an event at the park at 1:00. And I actually had somewhere to be. And I was like, dang it, I can't go. And I was like, no, you are going. So I said to my family, look, I can't go fishing with you. I said, I'm going to go down to the park and I want to see what's going on. Anyway, by the time I got down there, most of the people were the actual like newscast that you saw where the kid's reading from his phone. That part was over, but they were all still there. They were like sitting around smoking cigarettes. So I said, I got out of the car and I had all my stack of mayor papers with me. And I said, my name is Alicia Purdy and I'm running for mayor. I said, hey, I have a question for you. I said, did anyone else from the mayor's office come down here today? And they were like, no. I said, any other mayor candidates show up? They said, no. I was like, hi, I'm Alicia. I'm running as the people's mayor. And I'm here because I have a couple questions for you. So I asked them, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you going through? What's the complaint? What if you, and I was branding them all. You're mayor for a day, go. What's the first thing that you do? And that's what I say to all the people that I talk to constantly when they have a complaint. I say, you're mayor for a day. Boom, I just made you mayor for a day. You get the whole day. Anything you say, it goes. Anything you do, mayor for a day. And you know what? It really gets people's wheels turning. It forces them outside of the big picture and to say, oh, I only get to pick one thing. Now you're like, okay, do I pick a shooting? Do I pick the Black Lives Matter protest? Do I pick my trash? Which would I really want? You know, if I had to go pick one thing. And so it was an excellent dialogue. So they were very, very excited and receptive that I was there. So I said, hey, I heard there's another event tonight. Can I come back tonight? Would you mind if I came down and hung out with you guys? And they were like, absolutely. Right. So great conversations. I left. I came back a couple of hours later. And this was really the march, the true march. The other one was kind of like a rally. So I went back up to all the same people. Some of them recognized me, handed out my mayor papers to more people. By the way, not everyone takes those. Some people are like, get away from me. That does happen. And so I walked up and said who I was. And I said, would you guys mind if I walked with you? And they were like, yeah, we want you to march. And I said, nope. I said, and I was very honest with them because I'm a very transparent person and I'm never going to be a big fraud and phony and misrepresent who I am and what I came to do. I don't. And I'm not trying to be all things to all people. Being the people's mayor means you represent as much of the people from a place of understanding as you can and meet their need where they are. That's my platform. And so anyway, I said, look, this is what I'm here to do. I said, if I were the mayor, I really believe it's the mayor's duty to be present at events in her city that could be world changing, or at least experience changing, just even for the people in the city. I said, I want to walk with you. I said, I'm not here in support. I'm not here not in support. I said, I'm here to observe, to listen, and to understand. And I have to tell you, they were beyond excited. They were like giving me sage to burn and mint for my mouth. And they were like, yeah, walk with us. And so I'm going to be honest with you, I took heat for that. I'm running as a Republican. It's a different story why I did that. But anyway, not every Republican, some Republicans were like, what an amazing thing that you just did. No one's ever cared enough to bother. They laugh at these people. They say nasty things. They ignore them, whatever. Other people were like, how could you support Black Lives Matter? How could you be down there? And again, I don't sit here and try to justify. I'm seeking to understand. So I say, what's your problem with a mayor of your city understanding what's going on in her own city? This is what I would do if I were the mayor. I would want to be at this protest, even if I just stood there and watched and tears ran down my face. I want to be there so people know they could come to me. And by the way, all these Black Lives Matter kids that were there yesterday, I don't want to call them kids. I don't know if they all were kids, but that were there when I was there on Saturday, multiple times they had said they emailed, they called the mayor's office. That is a problem. So whatever people think about protesting and riots, the main point that they made in their mayor for a day was that they want to be heard. And I know you're hearing that from other candidates. And I'm telling you, my boots on the ground was they said, protest is the language of people who have no voice. And so what a powerful lesson to learn for somebody who's a mayor candidate. And so when I showed up there, it did get violent. I don't know if you watched my whole video. There was violence. There was somebody dragged out of their car and stomped on the ground while I was standing there. That was very upsetting. But now in that man's defense, I don't defend physical violence, but the driver that got pulled out of his car said the N-word out his window and spat on one of the protesters. And then the protest, I didn't catch that because it was behind me. And all I caught was the man running up the hill and he dragged this guy out of the car and kicked him and beat him. These are real issues. And I was saying in my video, I said, some of these things are protected speech. You can flip somebody off. You can say the F word. Those are all protected speech under Supreme Court decisions. And so is the N word, even though it's hate speech by certain groups, is not under certain legal parameters. But are there natural consequences? Yes. And did that man experience the natural consequence of his action? Yes, he did. And I was like, hey, you want to hurl those words around and somebody punches you in the face? Look, I'm just here to observe. I said, this man got what he had coming, in my opinion. He incited people in an angry way. And you know what? The people that were there were peacekeepers at this event. They were excellent. They came right in to that man. They pulled him off. They pulled him apart. And they were like, you got what you deserved. You take a step back. That was the wrong action. And you know what? It was dispelled in 3 minutes. It was violent for like a minute and a half. It was super tense. And then it was over. People were very peaceful that day. Now, what's going on later? I wasn't there for that. I stayed until like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. I stayed with them. I listened to all their speeches. I watched all, I did all. And I'll tell you what, I found it to be a powerful, fascinating perspective of the people's voice and the message. There was a lot of passion. And now it's like, okay, how can I seek to understand what's the nugget here that you actually, what's the crux that started all this? And I had some really interesting perspectives, a lot of different ones, but very interesting.
Thank you. As we sent an interview out to our class and wanted to see what a lot of us were interested in, and it seemed that like violence in the city of Albany was one of the main topics. So how do you look to address the rise in violence that is happening in Albany, also across the whole nation right now, as we're seeing a rise in crime? How would you look to address that?
Well, I can't address it across the nation as much as I would love to, but in the city of Albany specifically. So one of the reasons why, one of the catalysts to the protest the other day, and probably even the little like mini protest riot that happened even before that, was about things that are happening. Dante Wright, Derek Chauvin. These are issues that are infuriating people. Now, some people came with stories of police violence. And we've seen, you know, we saw on the video, the police had acts of violence upon them as well. They had, like, you know, there was things thrown at their head and the window was broken, and, you know, all of it was just a big mess. Addressing violence in the city. And then that's not even, I'm not even talking about that. Even before the last few days, we had drug violence and domestic violence. So again, my perspective as the people's mayor is, first of all, there's always going to be bad people in the world. You literally can't, you'll never get rid of crime and violence. It will never happen, because there will always, no matter how many people desire more for their lives, there will always be people who just want to wreak havoc and chaos. There is. I talked to some Antifa members who were at that Black Lives Matter thing. And when I said I was running for mayor, they're like, go burn in hell, you're part of the problem. And I was like, okay. So you have those days. But addressing violence starts with, again, addressing people. There are reasons that people are violent. And I'm not justifying violence. I'm not, as a form of expression. But there are reasons. It could be a lack of education. It could be economic oppression or depression. It could be that you were abused as a child, and what you know now is to pay abuse forward in the world. But at the same time, from talking to people I've talked to that have gotten themselves out of that hole, one of the paths forward was that people met them where they were willing to deal with their, you know, they're ugly, and they did want more. And there was someone who came alongside them and reminded them at every step, you wanted more than this. I know that this happened maybe at home or in this part of your world. Education is what you said you wanted. We've got to stay the course with what you said you wanted for your life. And these are the paths forward. And so it's not going to encompass everything, but one of the things I've noticed and learned from people is that, that's a good question. I'll address that next. One of the things that, I made me lose my train of thought. It's a very good question. One of the things that I've noticed from people is that there are a lot of people who do want more, but they're not going to speak up. And there are a lot of people who are very, very afraid of where they live. They know their neighborhoods, they know their people, they know who's around, and they're not going to speak up. And so my dream, if I could have a dream here, would be to empower people to take charge of their own lives and to give them the tools to create a future of their own imagination. Should I address these? So I've got a couple questions.
Yeah, I was just about to say, we're running out of time, but we do have time to answer some questions from students that have questions to ask. So go for it.
Okay. So I see one here says, do you feel the link as a Republican has been a benefit or a detriment? Since the segment of Donald Trump. Well, let me tell you what, it comes up. Okay, so let me just real quick. I know we're running out of time. So I can't even go into Donald Trump. I don't know, man. I don't want his name attached to mine. I'm just going to leave that right there and walk away from it. But it does come up amongst Republicans and Democrats, but Republicans too. I met Republicans that were like, I said, hi, I'm here to collect signatures. And they were like, screw you, we hate Donald Trump, slammed the door in my face. And I was like, so you have those days too. But let me tell you why I ran as a Republican. I was an independent, actually, before I decided to switch my affiliation. It's because I wanted to vote in a primary, actually, and that's why I did that. But anyway, strategy. First of all, I did not want to face the primary. There's a Democrat primary coming up, and the likelihood, statistically speaking, of a Democrat beating an incumbent Democrat is low. So there's that. Historically speaking, in the city of Albany, there has never been an independent, no-party candidate. There's not even an independent party right now in New York, but a no-party candidate who's ever won. So the best strategy to win as mayor, in my opinion, was to take, I researched history. I researched all the way back 100 years. It's to take the contrary position and to really draw a line that says, I'm completely different than anything you've ever seen before, not because I'm a Republican, because I actually can't be boxed in. And so when people talk to me, they realize Republican is my name, and that's okay. I'm not rejecting that name. All I'm saying is it was an intentional choice to rise to the top.
Thank you, Alicia. We are very grateful that you took your time out of your day to come meet with us and talk with us. And time's up, but we wish you the best of luck with the rest of your campaign and everything. Yes,
thank you very much. If you have any more questions, you give my email. I'm happy to answer questions.
All righty, sounds good.
Thanks, everybody.